Welcome to Pursuit 365's home and lifestyle show, your go to destination for all things related to creating beautiful, harmonious, inspired homes and lifestyles. I'm your host, Cara Lawson, an award winning self story interior designer, and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this journey of exploration and inspiration. Today, we will be talking about dementia. Many of us have been touched in some form of dementia. With this in mind, I'd like to introduce our special guest, Raj Sahota. Raj is a certified therapeutic recreational specialist with a degree in therapeutic recreation and a post-baccalaureate certificate in disability applied behaviors and analysis. She has been with Brella Community Services Society since 2014. Inspired by her personal experiences caring for her grandfather, she found her passion in therapeutic recreation and has been dedicated to it for a decade. Raj dreams of completing her master's degree to enhance her skills in helping individuals age in place safely. Currently leading the day program, she focuses on meeting clients' social, physical, and cognitive needs through innovative approaches. Raj Raj's biggest accomplishments stem from her strong relationship with staff and clients, reflecting her commitment to Brella's mission. Welcome, Raj. It's a
Hi,
pleasure
Kara.
to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Can you share your background and how caring for your grandfather inspired you to specialize in dementia care?
Yes. So, right out of high school, I had no idea what I was doing. I took a whole bunch of general study courses. I thought I wanted to get into business admin and, HR and work the offices and, work my way up the corporate ladder. I soon found out I hate desk jobs. So, so that kind of went right out the window. And so that totally changed gears, kind of tried to figure out what do I really like? What's my passion? I was taking care of my grandfather at that time. He was living with us. He had dementia and he had actually passed away. And it was about 2 years after that he had passed away. And I had still felt a void in my life, primarily because, growing up, that's all we knew was we based our schedules around my grandfather. And it was, somebody would always be home, or we made sure not to leave him alone for more than an hour or two. Um, so not knowing that I was actually doing rec therapy, I was really doing rec therapy with him. So I'd talk to him, we'd reminisce together, we'd go for walks. I'd sit with him for lunch and for dinner. My dad always made sure that he came home and he debriefed about their day together. There was a point in time where my grandfather's dementia had progressed to the point of where he now thought his grandkids were his children.
Oh,
And he thought that my parents were just the neighbors that came by and checked up on us all. So my aunt was living with us at that time, and a funny story is that she would actually come upstairs every once in a while, usually to make him lunch. And he once randomly asked her, said, "Hey girl, you're here all the time. Do you live close by?" And she kind of
no.
started laughing and said, "Much closer than you think."
Oh, that's
So
hard.
it was difficult for my dad and my aunt to see their dad going through that and to lose their father in a sense because he no longer identified as their father. So he identified as our father. So for the grandkids. So he was always a little extra protective with us. He was always a little stricter with us, but we understood all of that. Um, it was difficult. It was very difficult for my dad in the very beginning. But once he got to know a little bit more about dementia, he kind of made his peace with it. And their relationship evolved from a father son relationship to more friends.
Oh,
So once
wow.
my grandfather passed away, I felt that void because, our entire lives revolved around him. It was, all of our spare time was with him. So I started volunteering at my local care home. And I realized that that is the piece that I was missing. And I was unknowingly doing rec therapy my entire life. And that's how I got to know about this program and that this is an actual job.
Wow.
And realized, how do I get into school for it? Got into school. I did my diploma first. And then I graduated, and then I worked for a bit, and then I did part-time school and part-time work, and then, or sorry, part-time school and full-time work, and then COVID hit, and I was like, you know what? This is the best opportunity to just go right back into school. Everything's online. I don't have to make the commute from South Surrey all the way to Coquitlam every day.
All right.
So I, with the support of my family and work, I did full-time work and full-time school for about 2 years.
Wow. Wow.
And then
Good.
I graduated with my degree in recreation therapy. And then I wrote for my certification, and that was a whole ordeal in itself. It's a story for another day. That day it was something.
Wow.
I laugh about it now, but it was not funny at that point.
No, I imagine not.
No,
Very
it was
stressful.
it was extremely stressful. Yes. Um, but yeah, so that's how I kind of came about to it. And then I've been with Brella, formerly known as Seniors Come Share Society, since 2014. So it's this April marked 10 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What a great story, how you came about. Yeah, fantastic. Very inspiring. What can you tell us a little bit about dementia and how it differs from normal aging?
Yes. So dementia is kind of, if you view dementia as just the global decline of the brain in the simplest form of explaining it, it is generally just the global decline of the brain. There's four main types of dementia, or the four most common forms. So dementia is the overarching term above. It's kind of like the umbrella term, and then you have the other differentiating types underneath it. So you have Alzheimer's, which accounts to about 80% of all cases of dementia are Alzheimer's. And that does have to do with protein buildup in your brain. And those protein buildups slow down the neurotransmitters. And that is what causes the kind of the decline of the brain itself. And then the second most common form is Lewy bodies. So you have Lewy body dementia as well, and then you have vascular dementia, and you have, sorry, I'm having a brain fart. You've got
Okay.
Lewy body, vascular, frontotemporal is your other form of dementia. So those are your four most common forms of dementia. What differentiates Alzheimer's from Lewy bodies is that although Lewy bodies is also a buildup of a protein within your brain cells, it's a very specific protein known as the Lewy body protein, and it only targets certain brain cells. So Alzheimer's kind of targets the brain overall and in general. Lewy bodies is very specific, and it mimics Parkinson's. So there's a lot of times where Parkinson's and Lewy bodies either go misdiagnosed, or they get vice versa, they'll get diagnosed as the other,
Oh.
primarily because the signs and symptoms, they're very similar. So you'll have vivid hallucinations, you'll have the tremors, you'll have
Oh.
sticking of the steps. So as you're walking, it's almost like your feet are sticking to the floor. So your upper body continues to move, but your lower body takes a little bit longer, which is why there's more falls in Lewy
Oh.
bodies and Parkinson's as well. Along with,
Interesting.
yes, yep. And then you actually have well over 200 different types and forms of dementia. And then you have something called a mixed dementia, which can be a combination of any of those most common four, or one of those four and any of the other 200.
Wow.
Yes. So as time goes on and more research is being done, there's newer forms and newer types of dementias that are coming about. The latest one is actually childhood dementia.
Mm.
So it affects children from pretty much birth to about 18. And the reason it's till 18 is that's the longest someone has survived.
Oh.
Unfortunately, dementia itself is fatal. There is no cure for it, but there is lots of things that can be done to help slow down the progression of it and to help maintain the current cognitive and physical abilities of those that have been diagnosed with it.
Okay. Early detection. Tell us about that
Yes,
and
early
how it.
detection is key, primarily because the earlier you get diagnosed, the more that can be done. So it's pretty much about maintaining your current skills and your current abilities and trying to keep the progression from um, moving forward or slowing down the progression as much as possible. I was actually very interested in figuring out what does the decline of dementia cognitively look like. And you would think it would be a decline where, it just kind of goes downhill, but it doesn't. So it'll
Oh,
go downhill and then it hits a plateau. And that's the plateau where we're trying to maintain everyone's skills and abilities. And that can be done through building your cognitive reserve. So your
oh,
cognitive reserve is actually something that is worked on your entire life. So it's not just something that you did earlier on in your years. Your cognitive reserve does have to do with skills that you've learned. Learning new skills is very important. But the most important part of your cognitive reserve is getting out of routine. So
oh,
for
really?
exercising your brain, yep. So we have this tendency as humans to like routines and to do the same things over and over. And it kind of gets monotonous, but it's comfortable for us. But it's
Right.
not good for your brain. Your brain needs change. Your brain needs flexibility. Your brain needs to create new neural connections and figure out how to get around the blockages that are in our brain. So if you think of the protein buildup as construction on the road. So if your brain is a map and you have streets and avenues, and the protein buildup is all the little constructions that are happening, so you have to take detours. So
Oh,
if you
okay.
want to go down 152nd, but there's construction happening, you have to figure out how do I go around it? So you got to take the side streets and the back roads. And that's where you're building your cognitive reserve comes in. And that plays a key part in creating all of those neurotransmitters and side roads and back streets in your brain. So it's not necessarily that you are changing the structure of your brain, you're just rewiring it different.
Interesting.
Yes.
I heard a very interesting, and I don't know if there's any truth in this, so maybe you can let me know about how facing your fears actually creates, you know, uh, what you're talking about. Is that true? Or
I haven't heard much about facing your fears for the dementia portion of it or the cognitive reserve portion of it, but I have heard quite a bit about stepping outside of your norm.
okay,
Um, I do have this one slide that I always refer to, and it's kind of like it's a pyramid pretty much, and it talks about, what's the fastest way of building your cognitive reserve? Traveling is actually up there.
oh, really?
Yes. So the reason traveling's up there is primarily because what are you doing when you're traveling? You're going to a new place, you're visiting a new city. You need to figure out how you're going to get from point A to point B. Before you even get there, you're constantly thinking about it. You're constantly doing new research on it. Where do you want to go? What do you want to eat? What's some sites you want to see? How are you going to get there? Are you taking a plane? Are you driving? Are you taking the train? Once you're there, how are you going to get from the hotel or from the airport to your hotel? Are you taking an
Right.
Uber? Are you going to use, is your hotel picking you up? So you're constantly thinking about it, you're constantly exercising your brain, you're constantly planning. It's all outside of your norm, it's all outside of the box. So when
Okay.
you're here, you're stuck in your same routine. It's your 9 to 5, wake up at the same time, do the same morning routine, and then go to work, take the same route to work, get to work, you do the same routine, you take the same road back. So even by making small, minor changes throughout your day, 2 minutes a day is all it takes to help build your cognitive reserve. And that's doing simple things. So take a different route, either to work or from work. Take a detour. Uh, try not using your GPS if you
Okay.
are. Another one is if you're out and about and you do the trails, you can download the app called All Trails and it's completely free. You can try some new trails. If you don't want to try any of the newer trails, do the same trail that you do, but do it backwards. So instead of
Okay.
constantly walking the same way, go the other way around.
And
Just
let's
small.
not forget travel more.
Exactly, 100%. The only thing with traveling more is, yes, it does add to your cognitive reserve, but it's also more expensive.
Right.
So it's a little bit of an expensive way of building your cognitive reserve, but it's also the fastest way.
Okay.
Another thing you can do is scheduling things. So we all know unless you schedule it, it doesn't happen. Like me in the gym, I have two memberships, of which I go to zero.
Oh
Unless
my.
I'm scheduling my gym workouts, I'm not going. It's the
Right.
same way with everything that we do. So with a
Yeah.
lot of the clients, I help them schedule things. So we've got one client who does have a dementia diagnosis, but we've signed them up for a book club. So every
Oh,
month they meet at the local library here, and she takes part in the book club. She's been my client for about the last 6 years now. She has progressed further into her dementia diagnosis since she started with the day program here. And since then, we've been kind of modifying things to help her stay independent and keep her hobbies. So her biggest hobby was reading. But because of the type of dementia that she has, what happens is as she's reading, her eyes will jump lines.
oh,
So she has to reread that page multiple times. And at times it gets very frustrating and confusing because she's trying to read and follow along. So first it was, the print's too small. So we got the same books, larger print. And then we ended up getting digital version so then she can zoom in and read. And now it's getting to the point of where her eyes were jumping lines. So we discovered that what we can actually do is we can get her the audio version as well. So we got her the audio book and the physical book so she can listen to it and read along.
oh, what a great
Yes.
idea.
So that way she's still maintaining her hobbies, she's still maintaining her independence, she's still able to take part in her monthly book club, even though she has a dementia diagnosis. So
Right.
just because you have the dementia diagnosis doesn't necessarily mean that it's the end of the world or your life is over.
Mhm.
That's one of the biggest stigmas that is out there,
Okay.
is going and getting diagnosed, because it's the automatic assumption that if the doctor says I have dementia, my driver's license will be taken away.
Um,
I'll start losing my rights. I won't have choice and options anymore. My finances will be controlled by somebody else. My entire life will be controlled by somebody else. And that's not necessarily the case.
right.
Earlier you get the diagnoses, the more there is that we can do to slow down the progression and keep it at bay.
Hmm. Wow. Great advice, Raj. What are current treatment options available?
So there are pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical options.
Okay.
Combination of both work the best. Pharmaceutical options, there's different medications, but the medications are not necessarily for the dementia diagnosis itself. It's for the side effects. So with some of the dementia diagnoses, you'll have the hallucinations, you'll have irrational thoughts,
Hmm.
you'll have the tremors. So it's more so for the side effects of dementia
Okay.
and to help maintain those so that you can live more of a regular or an active lifestyle, or what your normal was. And then you also have the non-pharmaceutical options, which is, the day program. Taking part in the day program is an excellent resource. Taking part in local community settings, taking part in recreation programs that are offered there, community services is offered through the day program from downstairs in Brella. Another one is the Kent Street lunches that we offer. So
Oh,
that one, I believe it's a cost of $10, and you get lunch and free entertainment.
oh,
Yeah.
that's
And then
great.
we do local coffee chats. Majority of it is the more you get people out and about and prevent the social isolation, the better it is for everyone. Now,
Right. Which,
COVID has played a major role in the amount of new diagnoses of dementia. So prior to COVID in 2020, the amount of Canadians 65 plus that were diagnosed with dementia was about 400,000 a year. That has jumped up to 600,000 since then.
Wow, that is
It's
so many.
Yes. So social isolation plays a key part in keeping dementia at bay and slowing down its progression.
Wow.
So it's
Wow.
just getting people out and about and socializing with their community again, whether it's a phone call, FaceTime, going out, walking down to the beach, just saying hi, hello to your neighbors, just checking in on each other, seeing how everyone's doing. You'd never realize the impact that you can have on someone until
Hmm.
it's happened.
Right. Yeah. That applies to so many things.
Exactly. Exactly. The world would just be so much better if everyone was just a little bit more patient, a little kinder, a little bit more understanding.
Yeah, totally agree. Um, are there any recent advancements or research that you're excited about?
Yes. Okay. So this is happening in the States, and I've been following it very closely because it's non invasive. So they're looking at doing sound wave therapy and
Oh,
treatments. So, you know how they can do like kind of sonic blasting for kidney stones? They're
yeah.
looking at doing the same thing, but for plaque buildup in your brain.
Wow.
Yes.
Fascinating. And they've had great success so far?
They're trying, so they are working on it. It's just some newer stuff that's coming out. So they're looking at sound waves and
Okay.
how to break up the protein buildup that is happening using sound waves. So it's non-invasive. Your body would naturally go in and start cleaning out the debris or the protein that's been blasted into smaller pieces, and it would help with regenerating. Well, the neurotransmitters and creating new neurotransmitters and new pathways.
Wow.
Yes, it's very exciting.
So would you have to do that in early stages or would they be able to?
I think you would see more of an impact in the earlier stages, definitely, which is why it comes back to early detection is key. So
Mhm.
going to your doctor and getting your tests done, getting a blood work done, getting the referral to the gerontologist, and then kind of going from there and figuring out exactly what form of dementia you have is definitely what would help because each form is diagnosed slightly differently. The protocols for each form of dementia is also different um, because the signs and symptoms are different. So there's different things that they'd look for. There's different ways that it would manifest. Age plays a huge part in it. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about aging.
No.
I've tried. I haven't found the fashion of youth. I'll tell you one thing, it's definitely not in Surrey or White Rock. We've all been looking and it's not here.
It's not here, no.
It's not here, unfortunately. No, not here. So, unfortunately, nothing can be done about age. Genetics is another part that plays into it. Primarily, early onset Alzheimer's is linked to genetics. So, there's
Oh,
two different types of genes for that part. There's familial genes, which are the ones that get passed down from parent to child. If that does happen, you have a 50-50 shot of developing Alzheimer's. And that's primarily early onset Alzheimer's, and that will start to manifest and kind of develop before the age of 65. So that's kind of um, the differentiating point. So anything before age 65 is known as early onset. And then after, it's just Alzheimer's or dementia or frontotemporal or vascular. So there's that. And then the other one are risk factor genes. Now there's about 20 to 30 different type of risk factor genes. These genes primarily just mean that you have a higher likelihood of developing Alzheimer's or dementia in your lifetime. It doesn't necessarily guarantee or predict that you're going to get it. It's just that your likelihood is slightly higher than somebody who doesn't have those risk factor genes. So Chris Hemsworth actually on his show Limitless did genetic testing for those genes, and it came back that he has two of those genes. So it made him about 8 to 10 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's than
wow.
the average person who doesn't have those risk factor genes. And it also runs in his family because his grandfather has Alzheimer's. So he's actually taken a little bit of a break from acting to focus on his family. So he's
Wow.
making memories with the kids, spending more time with his family, just kind of taken a step back and re-looked at what his priorities are currently so that
Hmm.
his life can be more fruitful in the future.
Right. And some people have both parents that have it.
Yes,
So
exactly.
that's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Oof, a lot to think
Yes.
about.
Dementia is a big topic. It is. There's a lot to cover. I mean, I could talk about this for days at this point. Talk about, all the different forms and all the different types and the new studies that are coming out. There's actually one specific form of dementia known as alcohol-induced dementia. Wendy Williams just got diagnosed with that, so it's Korsakoff syndrome.
Mm,
So that has to do with excessive alcohol consumption throughout the lifetime.
wow.
So it's kind of like what they say with gambling. It's know your limits, stay within it. So the healthy limit is 14 units a week, which is about a pint and a half of beer or a bottle of wine
Okay.
through a week, not a sitting.
Not a city.
Not a sitting. Yes, it's very important. I always have to remind everyone that, they're like, oh, but I drank it, through the week, as in on Monday. And I'm like, no,
Oh,
that
no.
doesn't count. That has to be throughout the week, not one sitting.
Okay, I'm glad we clarified that. What resources are available for caregivers of dementia patients, and how can they navigate the challenges they face?
All right. So I actually just finished a project it was called the I'm Still Me project. And through that project, we created a toolkit. So it's a 54-page brochure and it covers everything from signs and symptoms to the most common forms of dementia to what to look for to early detection to legal matters, where to look for help and seek help in the South Surrey White Rock region, who you can contact and reach out to. So that is all available in a hard copy in our office here in South Surrey. So we're based out of 15008 26th Avenue. You can either come downstairs to the main community support office or upstairs to the day program office. Both offices can point you in the right direction. Or you can actually download the entire thing off of our I'm Still Me website. So it's www.brellasociety.ca/I'm Still Me. And the PDF version is available there, along with all of the resources that Brella offers. So we have the day program upstairs, we have community supports downstairs, we have caregiver support meetings that happen every Tuesday and Thursdays. We are now expanding into the Surrey and Guildford region as well. So once our new Newton location will be open, we have a designated spot for all of the caregivers that are based out of the Newton region to go and talk to someone who has knowledge and experience of not just dementia, but somebody who's also a caregiver and someone who's in their same boat as they are, and they can understand and relate to what's happening. So it's a peer led support group. We also have the director of family and caregiver services as well. And
Okay.
he is always available for phone calls and emails, and he'll point you in the right direction of, are you trying to get your loved one into a care home? Are you trying to get them into the day program? Are you looking for more resources to help them stay aging at home? Can we work with Fraser Health in some sort of way to get some extra resources at home to keep mom or dad there? We've worked with children that are pretty much in Alberta and their parents are here. So the kids reached out to us and said, hey, I'm concerned about mom or dad. This is what's going on. And we've been able to be the middle ground for them to kind of just be like, okay, let's send in our social prescribers or our volunteers to go do home visits, do one-to-ones, see what is needed. How can we help them? Whether it is getting some volunteers to come in and help with yard work or light house cleaning, or if it's we get one of our local handymen to go in and just, make the tub a little safer. So they'll go in and put the grab bars in, We'll take a look at the carpeting. We'll work with Fraser Health OTs and PTs and see how can we help their parents actively age in place for as long as possible. Or
Right.
if it's time to make that transition, how do we get that going?
That's fantastic. You're
Thank
just
you.
a wealth of information.
I've been around for 10 years, you know,
I love it.
which is
Yeah.
hard. It ends up on my plate somehow.
Well, it's your calling.
It really is. It really is.
So, how do you prioritize maintaining quality of life for dementia patients?
So at the day program, choice is always offered.
Right.
Always offered. Whether it's, would you like to play the game of bocce ball or would you like to do some bowling today? Or it'll be, would you like to come out for a walk with us or do you want to sit outside in the sun and just sit on the patio? So it's always providing option and providing choice. At the day program, we even have it so that they can be a passive participant. If they don't want to primarily take part in what is happening, they can sit back and relax and watch from the sidelines, and we're perfectly fine with that.
Hmm. Right.
Sometimes people have it where, they're not feeling up to it, or they're not an extrovert, or they're new and they're trying to fit in but they just feel a little shy, so we let them take their time to come out of their shell. We do our one-to-ones, we sit with them. The other biggest one is just human contact and touch, just
Right.
sitting with them and being in that moment with them. You don't have to say anything, you just have to be there. Just be present. Nonverbal communication is key, especially for the clients that are further progressed into dementia diagnoses. Many of them may not be able to understand what we're saying, whether it's due to a language barrier or it's due to how far along they are progressed in their dementia diagnoses. But they're able to pick up on the energy that we put out. They're
Right.
able to read our body language, whether we're closed off or we're open and warm. There's
Hmm.
always smiling faces. We always cut down to the level of the client. So if one of our clients is in a wheelchair, we'll crouch down and get to eye level. So then that way they don't feel like, me being tall, not
Mhm.
towering over someone and talking at them. I'll get down
Mhm.
to their level and talk with them or to them. Try to have conversations, human touch, just hold their hand. A lot of the time, it's just holding their hand. We don't
Right.
actually realize sometimes how long it's been since someone's held their hand. I had a
Oh.
client once tell me that the last time she was hugged was when her husband passed away 3 years ago.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah. So we
Mm.
greet her with a hug every time she comes.
Aw. Bring a big smile to her face.
Oh, 100%. Always. It always brings a smile to her face and it always brings a tear to our eyes, primarily because, that's not something that we actually think about.
Mhm.
It's a reality for a lot of people. She lives all alone. Her kids are out in Ontario and Toronto, and she has no life here. She has no family here. We're pretty much her only family. So after we found that out, all of a sudden it's everyone's going the extra mile for her, and she doesn't come, and the nurse is checking up on her, and we call, and we get neighbors to check in, and we'll have handy dart drivers, and like, oh, are you going to that building? Can you see if she's okay? Call us,
Mhm.
let us know. I've had staff members during COVID actually do cookie drop offs to
Aw.
clients who we knew didn't have family members. So we'd have the cook make big batches of soup and we'd pack it all up in individual cases and we'd drop it off at the door and ring the bell and we'd step back. And that was our way of checking in on them, seeing how they're okay, and still doing some sort of a contact with them.
Oh, that's so beautiful. What
So
a
even
what a feel good.
it
Makes me
really
wanna
was.
volunteer.
As as horrible as the whole COVID and the pandemic was, there was so much that the team did and they stepped up to do it, and it was things that they wanted to do. They
Mm,
made cookies themselves, and they individually packed them and wrapped them, and they wrote letters and cards, and they put little activity packages together, fully knowing what client enjoys doing what. So whether it's somebody who enjoyed coloring and doing crosswords, they'd make specific individualized little care packages for them. And then they'd drop them off and have, 5-10 minute conversations on the porch. And then we started doing weekly telephone calls. So it was something that not only our clients look forward to, but it's something that the staff loved doing, and they got to chit chat and check up on each other. And it just built that relationship even stronger. And it
mhm.
kept everyone kind of thriving and going. And it
Right.
was always the LPN. Every time we found out, someone's not doing so well, the LPN would do an extra call.
Oh,
She'd call 2 or 3 times a week and do a checkup and be like, "How are you feeling now? What's going on? All right, maybe, let's try this or let's do that." Or um, there was points where she would even make doctor's appointments, or she'd reach out to their doctor and be like, "I'm calling from the day program and I'm their nurse here. They need a prescription refill. Could you send their prescriptions to Save on Foods and they'll pick it up from there?"
wow, that's
So it's just
wonderful.
it is. It's just going the extra mile for all of our clients.
Yeah. Okay, this is a hard question, but what role does palliative care play in dementia care, especially towards the end of life?
Palliative care is very important, especially in dementia care, primarily because it is the end of life care.
Hmm.
It's about providing as much comfort as possible. It's about respecting their final wishes. It's about just being there for the person. It's the same care that we provide here, just at a higher level.
Mm,
Um, the one thing that I've always kind of valued, and it's always resonated with me from an earlier age, is that, you know, our grandparents played a big role in helping us take our first steps. So it's our turn to help them take their last.
right. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, okay. So let's move on to the next question before we both
Yeah,
start sobbing.
we both cried.
Yeah, just let's, so
I'm sorry.
um, what are some pressing issues facing individuals with dementia, and how can society better support them?
Oh, stigma is a huge one. And just the lack of knowledge about dementia and how to approach someone or talk to someone who has dementia, or just actually not even that. It's just the lack of respect that everyone has for each other, the patience that is needed in general when you're talking to someone. I've seen I've seen things. I was at the bank about a couple of months ago, and I'm waiting for the next till to open up, and there's an older lady at one of the tills, and she's within earshot, so I'm listening to the conversation. And the person at the tills very abruptly and rudely tells her, "This is the third time you've been here this week for a debit card. If you come back, we will charge you."
Wow.
Exactly. So imagine how that lady must have felt knowing that, oh, I've been here before, not knowing where she's left her card, if she's been there, what she did with her debit card. To her, it could be, oh no, I've lost it. I need to get another one. But the person at the till was extremely short and rude to them. So
Mm,
when it was my turn, I actually had that same person at the till and I had a conversation with them. Pretty
good
much
for you.
talked about, I don't know if you're aware about what dementia is, but there could be a good possibility that this person has it. And now not only have you belittled them, they're second guessing everything. And
Hmm.
it was like a moment of realization that that person had. And it was just, Patience and love and kindness goes a long way. And I'm finding that humanity is losing that. And
Mm,
respect. Humanity is losing respect for each other, and we're just shorter. And we never take the time to kind of put ourselves in their shoes of, maybe they're having a tough day. All I have to do is just, be a little kind, a little gentler, a little nicer, and it could turn their day around. I could
mhm.
be that turning point for them of, oh, I had a really good interaction with someone. This is great. I've been to restaurants and coffee shops before where um, it's clear that the person does have dementia, does have a dementia diagnosis, and they're with their loved one or their spouse. And instead of the waiter talking to the client, to the person that has dementia, they're directing all of their questions to their loved one or to that spouse. So that person's getting completely ignored altogether. No one's
Oh,
talking to them, no one's engaging with them. I've had it where, you know, sometimes people have looked at someone differently or oddly, or they snickered or chuckled, primarily because they were in a restaurant and they started to eat their soup with a fork instead of a spoon.
hmm.
So it always makes their family and their loved one feel a little uncomfortable. And that leads to not only societal stigma, but it leads to self stigma.
Mhm.
Because then this leads to the fact that, I can't take my spouse with me for the fear of somebody laughing at either myself or them, for the fear of what if this happens? What if they, have an episode or they start to hallucinate and something happens and I'm not able to manage that situation in that public setting? So it's
Mhm.
that fear that gets instilled in them. And then it turns into self stigma as well for the person that has dementia, because now they start to feel like they're a burden. They start to feel that my loved one can't go out because of me. They can't travel because they can't leave me alone to be at
Mhm.
home or to be here, or I'm okay for a few hours, but I won't be okay for a few days. So then
Well,
that starts eating away at the person as well. And then they start to, it starts to manifest, and they have these feelings of, I'm not good enough, you know, depression starts to set in, self-isolation starts to set in. They lose a lot of friends and family as well through that.
mhm.
We have an open door policy here at work. Well, I have an open door policy primarily so that at any point of the day, if any of the caregivers even want to come in and just vent and just talk about what is happening and let things out, they're more than welcome to do that. The
What?
reason I have an open door policy is because it's 11 minutes of empathetic listening. Studies have found that that's all it takes. 11 minutes of empathetic listening is enough for a caregiver to get through the next 24 hours. 11 minutes is nothing out of my day.
Wow.
If it means that it will give the caregiver enough time and energy and hope to get through the next 24 hours, I will happily give 11 minutes a day to anyone.
Wow.
A lot of the times, caregivers have said that, they do have friends and family members that they can speak to, but they feel like they're turning into a broken record. It's always the same thing. And
Hmm.
then eventually, friends and family members will start to get short and impatient. And it's, oh, yeah, you've already told me this. Oh, you're still having that problem. So it's, they're not empathetic or as understanding towards them anymore, versus where I live it every single day. So I understand what they're going through. And, yes, I have clients that repeat the same 5 stories to me. And yes, I listen to every single story with the same enthusiasm every time I've heard it. I know the beginning, the middle, the ending, but I will still be shocked and surprised every time they tell me the story. Primarily
Oh,
because I never want them to feel like, oh, I'm being ignored. Or, yes, I know I have dementia, but it doesn't mean that you treat me differently. Because at the end of the day, they're not their diagnoses. They are still that person just living with dementia. It's the same thing with someone who is diagnosed with cancer. They're still that person at the end of the day. They just have a diagnosis of cancer. We don't necessarily treat them any differently.
No,
So why do we
no,
do that with clients that have dementia?
exactly. So well said. And how would our viewers learn more about dementia? You did mention the PDF download, that sort of
Yes.
thing. Is there any other sources?
Yes. So we have YouTube videos, we've got articles, we've got podcasts. They're all linked onto our website. There's some great movies as well that are also linked in there. Some movies that depict dementia as well. Primarily, we worked with the PAC committee. So on that committee, we had caregivers and people that were living with dementia, and they added to those resources of what they felt was needed and what really benefited them. So this isn't necessarily coming through the medical lens or my lens as a certified therapeutic recreation specialist. It's coming directly from people that are living with the dementia diagnoses, or they're the caregivers of someone who has dementia, and they say, this is a resource I found. It was super beneficial. So we've taken everything and we've compiled it all onto our Brella website and the Brella I'm Still Me website. And all of the resources are there. They'll take you directly to other societies. We've got Purple Angels, we've got Alzheimer's Society. We're working with UBC, we're working with KPU students, we're working on educating the new nurses on how to talk with and approach clients that have further progressed into their dementia diagnoses.
Wow.
We talk about how it's important to not over medicate clients as well, and to figure out what is the trigger that caused them to have that reaction. Primarily because behaviors that come out get labeled as aggression, and it's not that they're aggressive, it's because that there's an unmet need. So whether
Right.
feeling unsafe, they're unfamiliar with their surrounding. They could be hot, they could be cold, they could be thirsty. Have they been sitting in that position in that wheelchair for multiple hours without being shifted? That gets
Hmm.
very uncomfortable as well. So it's
Right.
just trying to figure out and trying to find different ways. So we're working with the new nurses that are getting trained, and we're starting at literally like year one nurses to try to get them to understand that medication is not always the answer. It's trying to figure out what was the trigger.
Right.
Yeah, so we're working with them. We've got all the resources up on our website. We've got YouTube videos. We have a YouTube page as well. There's lots of great stuff coming out of UBC and SFU and the University of the Fraser Valley as well. So as new articles and new things are coming up, we're constantly updating our page. Yes, so all the information that you would ever kind of want or need, we're kind of trying to compile everything in one spot so it's all available on your at your fingertips, pretty much.
Perfect. Thank you, Raj, and thank you for sharing your all your educated answers and experience and stories. And I hope that this really helps people,
Yes, me too.
bringing awareness. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Pursuit 365's Home and Lifestyle Show. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation and found inspiration to create your own beautiful, harmonious, inspired spaces and lifestyles. Remember to subscribe for more tips and join us next time for another enriching discussion. This is Cara Lawson signing off. Until next time, keep living beautifully.